Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Detroit Federation's first virtual mission. I'm Naomi Miller. I represent the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit here in Israel. And I will be hosting this along with a wonderful guide and educator by the name of Benny Levine of Let Travel. Many of you know Benny if you've been to Israel before. But until we can see you here in person, we will share some of this wonderful country with you virtually. We will spend the next 4 Sundays at 10 a.m. with you for 1 hour. Today we will go to Jerusalem, but a city that is over 3,500 years old cannot be shared fully in 1 hour. So we have picked some highlights, and specifically the new and unique excavations not yet open to the public in the underground biblical city of David, with finds from over 2,000 years ago. Next week, we will enjoy the tastes of Jerusalem's Machane Yehuda market, the colors, the smells of the abundance of Israel's fruit, vegetables, and foods. The following week, we will join the dynamic people of Michigan's Central Galilee Partnership region. And our last week, we must visit the city of Tel Aviv, the vibe of that wonderful city, experience the urban culture of the city in Israel that never sleeps. Just a few technical comments before we get started. This is being recorded, so if you feel more comfortable, you can turn off your video. We do request that you all be muted. The Zoom can be sensitive at times on your end and on our end. So if for some reason you are disconnected or we are disconnected, just please re-enter. Best to put your screen in speaker view, which you can do at the top right-hand corner where you see it says view, in speaker view, because we have a lot of pictures to show you, which will be at the back of Benny and myself. These 4 sessions are supported, of course, by the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, as well as the Israel Consulate of the Midwest in Chicago. We are thrilled to welcome, to say a few words, the Honorable Aviv Ezra, the Israel Consul General in Chicago. Benny, over to you.
Hey, Naomi, can you make me a host, please, or a co-host? Here I am. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our tour to Jerusalem. I'm so excited to work with you.
Okay, our first technical problem is getting Benny to be hosted.
Yeah, I need to be a host so I can share my screen with you. And
folks, just 1 second. We have a little technical difficulty.
He's good. He's a host.
So perfect. I'm a host, and yeah, this is wonderful. So let's see what Mr. Ezra had to say to us before we taking off our airplane first flight. So let's hear what he have to say.
Shalom to all our friends in Detroit. It is my pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of the Israeli Consulate to the Midwest. These are definitely unprecedented times and uncharted territory, but we maintain our ongoing bond between Israel and the Midwest, specifically with Michigan and more specifically with Detroit. I had the honor of coming many times to your fair city, meeting with the members of Congress, U.S. senators, governors, state legislators, enhancing the connection on economic, business, academic, culture portfolios, and many more. I also had the honor of bringing 2 Michigan governors to Israel, and I know that both of them came back overwhelmed by what they saw. I know also that the best way and the best tool to enhance the relationship is by a physical visit to Israel, which unfortunately we cannot do during COVID-19 times. But I know that you're going to be visit Israel virtually, and I wish you a great visit to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, to Central Galilee, and I know that you're going to feel and taste the taste of Israel, and hopefully next year in Jerusalem in person. Shalom, and thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. But you know, in order to get to Yerushalayim, to this beautiful building, we actually need to start in a very small and famous airport that you can see behind me. And of course, for the flights today, you really need to put a mask. So we're going to put a mask to fly to Israel, but we're going to save you all the jet lag to cross the ocean to the other side, to Israel, and land in Tel Aviv Airport. When we land in Tel Aviv Airport, we're actually going to try, it's wonderful to be outside of the airport and outside of the plane, so we don't need to wear this mask again. But you can see that the airport is sitting in the middle of Israel. And let's try a little bit for those of you who never been to Israel. I want a little bit to show where is the airport and a little small interesting facts about Israel. So first of all, Ben Gurion Airport, named after the first prime minister of Israel by the name of David Ben Gurion. This is where the airport is, and it's actually sitting, as you can see, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. It's sitting between the Mediterranean and the big city of Tel Aviv and the city of Jerusalem right here. But I want to zoom out a little bit more and look on this map and get a little bit interesting facts about Israel. So first of all, we have 4 bodies of water that in a country like Israel, you can visit in one day. So we have the Mediterranean, we have right here the Great Lake of Israel, known as the Sea of Galilee and Lake Kinneret. We also have in this area the Central Galilee. It's the partnership area called in the area of Nazareth and Migdal HaEmek, where we're going to visit in 2 weeks. We have the Dead Sea that it's located in the center, really close to Jerusalem. And we have the Red Sea with Eilat Bay. 4 borders, 1 border right here, we can see it, it's with Lebanon, 1 border with Syria, right here with the Golan Heights. The longest border is actually starting from this lake all the way along the Jordan River to the Dead Sea, going all the way to the Red Sea. That's the border with a country called Jordan, our neighbors, and the border with Egypt. So the border with Egypt on this side, we can see the delta of the Nile. And this is a little bit of Israel, but we're gonna look inside and come closer to Jerusalem, land inside this city that I always love to see how it looks like from above. And if you see, you can see that it's really sitting on several hills with some open spaces in between. There's 1 little area, 1 square mile that we can see right here that is very, very packed. A lot of people above each other. And right here, that's where it is, the Temple Mount, Mount Moriah. And Naomi, I can really see that you have some kind of a picture behind you. So let me just see what we see there. Naomi, what it is? What's going on there behind you?
So what we're seeing here is really the very beginnings of Jerusalem as we hear about it in the Jewish texts. In Genesis 22, or Bereshit, the first book of the Torah, we hear about Abraham, who took his son Isaac to be sacrificed at God's command, Abraham being the first Israelite, the first Hebrew, taking his son onto a mountaintop to be sacrificed to God. Well, fortunately for all of those of us here, Isaac was not sacrificed. Isaac had Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. Very quickly, I'm going to jump a number of 100 years. Jacob's sons end up with their brother Joseph in Egypt. We are in Egypt for several hundred years until Moses takes us into the land of Israel. That brings us back to Jerusalem. So 800 years after Abraham, 3,800 years ago, we find Jerusalem back in the scriptures, in the Bible, in the Tanakh, when King David, who we all know from King David fame before he was king. He was the chap that we know of who killed Goliath in a valley just outside Jerusalem. So here is King David, David in Florence by Michelangelo, but the young David killing Goliath and getting his claim to fame. And it was here that David decided, once he became king, to choose Jerusalem as his capital. What did he decide to choose here? Why did he decide to choose Jerusalem? He chose Jerusalem for 4 reasons, and we're talking 3,000 years ago or 1000 BCE. You can see 2 things, and there's 2 other aspects that make Jerusalem a perfect place for a capital of the Jewish people, of the Israelites at the time. One is you see green around this biblical city. Green means there was water source. There was a source of water today and in ancient times. You could not have a city without water. Second, it can tell that it's on a hill. Cities in ancient times, in order to be protected, needed a hill. So that's what we can physically see. But what we also know about Jerusalem is that it was a neutral piece of ground, kind of like Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. meaning it didn't belong to any of the 12 tribes that Benny will show us in a second. And so it was neutral, and it was centrally located in his kingdom. Over to you, Benny.
So look, this is a beautiful map of the 12 tribes. And I love how we're running this history. You know, it's so quick and unbelievable to see when you think about it, that we are kind of doing a fast forward on like thousands of years, talking about one city that we are going to take you to tour a little bit the special sites that were opened specially for us. But King David just was a brilliant leader. I want you to think how brilliant he was. So Nomi was mentioning that Jerusalem is actually sitting on Benjamin's land. We can see the tribes right here. Judah is the tribe of the kings. All the kings along the way came from Judah's tribe. Here's all the other tribes. The first capital was Hebron, and Hebron was a little bit more far from the rest of it. So when David is putting Jerusalem here, he's like a brilliant marketer, leader, bringing everything closer physically, but also saying, I want to be the king of everyone. He also wants to build a temple, the temple that will stand above his palace and will be super beautiful, but he cannot make it. He had too much blood on his hand. And then we fast forwarding, and his son, King Solomon, is building the first temple. We can see that the first temple was a little bit small. We know today to call it the first temple, but at that time they just call it the temple. And I'm not talking about the temple that you have in Detroit, Temple Israel, Temple Shir Shalom, Temple Beit El. It's not like this. We're actually talking about one temple that all the Jews were looking up to. But that's, of course, finishing in the year 586 BCE by the Babylonians that coming in, taking everybody outside, marching, burning the city, marching the people of Israel that we can see here to Babylon. And the people of Israel are sitting there and they are playing songs and singing on the rivers of Babylon. We think of Zion. Zion is another name for Jerusalem. They are coming back, building again a small temple on top of the mountain, and we're running forward. We can see the next ones that are coming to Jerusalem is the Greeks, the famous story of Hanukkah. This is a menorah that projected at night during Hanukkah last year on the old city walls. The Greeks are coming here as well, taking over the temple, and after that leaving, and the temple is continued to be on top of the mountain. The Greeks leaving, but then coming the Romans, and then the Romans. When the Romans here is one of the most important times for us, and we will talk about it on our tour, because that's the first time where we actually can see some evidence for the temple, and that's already the second temple. So the Romans are building it, and we're going a little bit forward more, and the temple is destroyed in the year of 70. And this picture is actually from Rome, the Titus Gate outside of the Colosseum. That's a gate that was built by this king that's showing, look, all the treasures that were carried outside of Jerusalem, and the city was destroyed. The temple was destroyed. And then after that, the Christians are arriving. And the Christians are arriving, and we can see behind me Helene, Queen Helene, and Constantine, that coming from Constantinople or Istanbul today, and they changing the Roman time to Christian time. And in Jerusalem, we are starting to have, even until today, a road, a pilgrimage road that a lot of Christian people are taking, called the Via Dolorosa. It's a famous parrot. When you come by, he will if you give him a candy, he will say, Toda Rabba, Toda Rabba, means thank you in Hebrew. So worth a visit when all of that ends. And that's obviously ending up in this beautiful church called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But then what can I tell you? That's not last for long. The Christians are in, the Byzantines are ruling Jerusalem, but then a new religion is rising up, and this religion is the Islam, and we have Muhammad as it's looked as a painting, in a painting that coming from the Far East, and the Islam is really, really interesting as a religion, because one of the most important buildings is that we know that today stands and like shine up, and that's this, of course, the Golden Dome, the Dome of the Rock, and that's connected to the Muslims, that it's the third most important holy site for the Muslims after Mecca and Medina. Muhammad is ascending to heaven and bringing the news of 5 prayers per day. So, of course, the Muslims are here, they're living and leaving a mark, but the Christians are coming back. Yes, yes, yes. Jerusalem is actually holding the Guinness record for how many times it's changed hands. By the way, you're here and that's wonderful. You can see the chat. So if you want to guess how many times Jerusalem changed hands, you're welcome to write for us. We will see if anyone will answer it right. We'll look for a special surprise to surprise you. But the next one's coming, the Crusaders that really make everything possible in this land. They are ruling for a very short time. And, you know, it's very interesting time in the land of Israel, the crushing, the parades of the Crusaders that are going all the way to Jerusalem, holding Jerusalem, ruling Jerusalem. But those are disappearing. And probably the most important Muslim leader when it's coming back to the Muslims are the Turks. And the Turks, led by this amazing Sultan, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. I always ask how you become the Magnificent, how you can add to your name the title the Magnificent. And he actually built a wall that until today we can see. Look at this. This is probably a picture of you know, a picture of Jerusalem that you saw. It's a building or a museum. It's the wall of the old city of today. And the old city of today is a city that it's very new. It's 450 years old. So all this history that we ran through, the actual old city that we're going to visit and walk sometimes on its walls, and look outside of the walls to see what we can see outside. And this is the King David Hotel that is like shown from one of the fire halls. And the little tower of the YMCA. So all of those buildings, all of them are actually already coming from a later time, when the British arriving here, because the old city, this 1 square mile that we saw, that very, very close, was the Jerusalem until the middle of the 19th century. And then the British are arriving, and this is a great picture in the Jaffa Gate, and we can see a very famous general that called General Allenby. He is coming. Everyone that visiting Tel Aviv know this specific place because there is a street called the Allenby Street, and it's pretty central in Tel Aviv. Everybody that comes to Israel is passing through the Allenby Street, and we will be there in 4 weeks from now. But Allenby is coming in the end of the First World War, and as you can see right here, and it's really, really beautiful. Some of the soldiers that are coming with him, he had 1 brigade that are coming here, and it's a Jewish brigade, and we can see the Jewish soldiers from this brigade are in the background of the Western Wall, the Kotel, that we can see behind them. And of course, at that time, the old city was really closed for people to come in with chariots or any way of transportation except walking. So outside of the same gate, of the Jaffa Gate, you had the taxi station. So this one, you see this one? This is actually saved. We have a little plaque on it for all the famous guests from the Jewish Federation of the Metropolitan of Detroit. So we actually upgraded it a little bit. So if you come and you call ahead of time, it will look like, I don't know, Mercedes-Benz or a Land Rover. So that's what we did since. But those are the chariots. And the British are here for a little bit of time until 1948, when Israel became a state. And that's very easy to remember. If one thing you remember from today, this is the one sentence: 1948, Israel became a state. It's even rhymes. But Jerusalem have a very crazy moment in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is divided. Look, this is a concrete wall in the middle of the city from 1948 to 67. Look, it's unbelievable. This is a concrete wall. In some other places, it was barbed wire. This, by the way, a street that many of people that came to Israel before, this is a street outside of the Jaffa Road in Jerusalem. That's where the light train goes today. So it's pretty easy, but that's all ends up in 1967 in the war of the 6-Day War. And here, right here, I have a picture that actually, Naomi, if you can unmute yourself and tell us what this picture is unbelievable.
This is probably one of the most famous pictures of the 6-Day War. This is Rabbi Goren, the chief rabbi of the Israeli Defense Forces, who was blowing the shofar at the Western Wall with the paratroopers, when the wall was liberated in June of 1967. It took over 1900 years until there was Jewish control of the Western Wall of the Temple Mount. So this is June 1967, the blowing of the shofar, a sign of celebration. Benny?
So I will blow our shofar to start I really want to start our tour with a blow of a shofar. So, and Naomi, I want to put you near me because I already see that you have a beautiful picture behind you that is really connected to that time, the old and today. So, and this is a special moment. So I'm gonna blow this shofar for us to start actually going and seeing places that until today was closed and are still closed for the public and were opened especially for us. So,
let the tour begin.
So what do we see behind you, Naomi?
What we see behind me is 3 of those paratroopers standing at the wall. This picture was actually called the Paratroopers Cry, because who would really see soldiers crying at all? They were crying when they got to the Western Wall, feeling that they had almost 2,000 years of history on their shoulders in June of 1967. And 50 years later, those soldiers came back. Look at them now. None of us have changed that much in 50 years, but they have. In any case, let us start now with the excavations, Benny, in the Jewish city of David.
So you can see I brought another picture of this city. And before we go, we actually had a special event. We have a fellow Detroiter that is responsible on a site called the City of David. And he opened for us the doors to this unbelievable, really special excavations that are still close to the ground. And he's actually right now in Detroit, but he left us a message that I really want you to see right now and share with you. He wishes us, before we take you to see what he actually opened for us, especially for you. I'm a tour guide for about 20 years, and I was goosebumped when I walked through the special street that he is going to open for us for this special visit. So let's hear from Doron.
Dear friends from Detroit, my name is Doron Spielman.
One more time. Here you go.
And I am a proud Detroiter, and I'm here to welcome you to the City of David, the project I've been working on for the last 18 years to take you behind the scenes with Naomi and Benny to see the incredible Pilgrimage Road excavation. But before we go into the Pilgrimage Road, I have to say that when I speak to people from Detroit, it's incredibly moving and I'm enormously grateful because it truly is the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit that put me on my journey to uncover my roots and ultimately to live in Israel. I'll never forget the day in my fraternity at API. I woke up in the morning and I saw a postcard in the mailbox that said, join Jewish Occupational Internship of Metropolitan Detroit, of the Jewish Federation. I did that internship and it opened up my eyes to the incredible work that's being done in Detroit. This was followed by the Otzma Fellowship Program, which sent me to Israel, and every step along the way. Now, for the last 18 years, I've been working in the City of David, and we have uncovered the actual underground walkway that Naomi and Benny are going to take you through that escorted men, women, and children up to the temple from the Siloam pool 2,000 years ago. This was the place where we came together as families. We joined together for the holidays, and we experienced that incredible, incredible pathway through Jewish history. Today, the pathway goes through the City of David, and then it goes through the Davidson Center, which is the Davidson family from Metropolitan Detroit, ultimately near the area of the Western Wall. This is going to become the new archaeological entranceway into the old city. And I think it's not by chance that the Detroit Federation has its footprint here, both in sending me here with the Davidson family and many, many others, because it is the Detroit Jewish Federation that has made such an incredible commitment to supporting both locally in Detroit and also the state of Israel. I've also seen the incredible work firsthand that's been done during COVID. My own mom wakes up every day and goes to sleep every day watching tons of educational content put on by the Detroit Federation. So it is with deep, heartfelt pleasure that I welcome all of you virtually to this incredible site, and I look forward to you coming and visiting me in person in the years to come. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to Detroit from the City of David.
Okay, I'm very, very excited. Naomi, what we see behind you?
So what you see behind me is actually the ancient excavations of the City of David of today. These were underground for over 2,700 years until digging started about 30 years ago. And most recently, what has been found is the ancient street of the city that looks something like this. What you can see behind me is an ancient street going all the way up the city. This was kind of the main street for shopping, for socializing. It was kind of like Orchard Lake Road, if you like, of 2,000 years ago. This, Benny, was under the city, was not known until the excavations that Doron was referring to in the last 2 decades. As we said, not open to the public as yet. We will show you pictures of what we saw. Benny, you can show them in a model. Unmute.
Sorry. If you look right here, what we can really see is the city of David from another angle. So that's 3,000 years old. And before we jump and really talk about the new excavations, so I'm going to show you a little bit of like a little touch from how exciting these excavations were and why they are so exciting. But in order to understand it, we saw the picture of Naomi standing in the excavation in this building right here. That was the palace. On top was the temple. That's Mount Moriah, where Abraham sacrificed or attempted to sacrifice Isaac. That's where King David's son will build the first temple, the temple for the Jewish people. But if I change a little bit and look on it, it's really sitting, remember the model, it's sitting on these slopes. So we can see the slopes that are coming all the way from here down. And if we look on the valley, so this is Mount of Olives, and with its famous cemetery, Jewish cemetery, it's so famous because when the third temple will be rebuilt, whoever will be here, they will be very close. They will just need to cross this valley called the Kidron Valley and come up this mountain right here. So we're sitting on this big building on top of the hill, looking down. And when we look down, we see houses and you can see the walls. And when you start to excavate, I want you to try to think or to imagine a moment where the archaeologists are running around and screaming, I found, and everybody looking on them. And they say, what did you find? And they say, look, we found the toilet. And it's exciting, but not really. But when you understand archaeology, and we're going to have a glimpse today to a closed site, but this is a great example. This is a toilet that was here. So everything we found here, all the layers that were inside is layers that today we can date. We can know what people ate. So for example, in the year 703 BCE to 701 BCE, for 3 years, the people of Jerusalem were eating only wild grass. Why would you eat wild grass? Then we jump to the Bible, opening the story, and we know that an Assyrian king coming in those same years. Assyrians are the people that were in the area of Babylon before the Babylonians. He's coming to Jerusalem, putting a siege on the city for 3 years, and then the Babylonians attacking him, so he needs to go home and protect his home. And this is the connection. We don't look on the Bible as a history book, but this is a site where things starting to connect. And when they are starting to connect, I really want to look on what's the most important, and that's really, Naomi, behind you, I see the picture where we were walking around the site, wearing those helmets.
Well, let me just mention, Benny, that Iris asked a question, how was it discovered? That was a question that just came. And the way it was discovered, folks, what we need to understand about Jerusalem, unlike Detroit, unlike Melbourne, Australia, where we have 200-300 years of history, below Jerusalem, you could go back as far as several thousand years. You know, in the area of what we call today the Old City, the city of David, you dig down below, you will find remains of earlier cities. Jerusalem is like that fabulous Michigan 7-layered cake with plenty more layers, up to 25 layers, one layer above the other of different archaeological periods. So to answer that excellent question, In Jerusalem, you know that there are finds below you. The question is how to access them. And Iris, your question was excellent because this has been one of the most challenging excavations in the history of archaeology in Israel. Because what you are seeing is that ancient street, not open yet to the public. And can you see above it strong metal arches? Look at the strong metal arches. The street that Benny is pointing to is the street behind me. As I said, the Orchard Lake Road of 2,000 years ago, those strong metal arches above us are actually holding up an entire neighborhood called, or a village called Silwan. How do you dig? Normally, if you're going to dig a hole, you dig down below. But here they had to dig this magnificent pilgrims' access to Jerusalem underneath the city. And by the way, this road, you have to imagine, thousands of people walking on it just last week. Last week, we celebrated Sukkot. Sukkot is one of the 3 pilgrim holidays. The pilgrims coming to Jerusalem, Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, coming to Jerusalem, ascending to the Temple Mount on this very road. So when Doron spoke to us about the excavation, they were excavating underneath a city and supporting it with these arches. Benny.
So today we know we have these paintings that we now base on different things that we found or that we know. So when you have a street, I love to just a little bit see how does it look when you jump? Like what's the stages? So the stages, that's pretty much like a basic feeling of how a site looked like. But it's already looked like this after you removed all the mud. It was covered to the top. So you dig, then you add the arches, then you put the bags of mud and send them out on this conveyor that goes all the way, and you clear the entire area. All this mud goes outside and it will be cleaned and washed and checked. And a lot of the findings will be found and looked for and deeply really looked through, because a lot of the findings are interesting. And if we look on the road, so we see the road, but on the side of the road, in some places, they made another arch and digged in, because Naomi was telling you about the stores. Here are the stores. Look at this. This is a really interesting finding. If you look right here, this is a coin. It looks round, right? So we don't see the details, but it was so many times stepped on, and probably the rocks were standing on it, that it glued to the ground. And this is maybe a coin that somebody lost his final shekel, that he could not buy what he wanted on the market. But we really had an unbelievable, amazing moment to go through these excavations when archaeologists are still working there. And when we get back to the street have 2 sides. One side is right here above, and that's the street. But underneath, 2,000 years ago, was a sewage system. So people ask me, that's not possible. You know, and we didn't even thought about it. Today, you can walk through this sewage system and exit in a really interesting place. But look right here in this new excavation where you can really see it. This is where the sewage system, and here's the street. It's right here. So it's basically one above each other, and that's 2,000 years old. So if that's 2,000 years old, we actually want to see and understand what people could find there. So one of the findings is this golden bell. Golden bell that in the Bible, we're always looking for the connections, right? So the only one that had a golden bell as his clothes is the high priest. So we actually decided to take the sewage system all the way to a place called the Davidson Center. So I'm going to take you a little bit through this beautiful walk to the Davidson Center. So let's start this unbelievable walk all the way to the Davidson Center through a sewage system that is 2,000 years old. So we were walking, entering, it's nice, it's now have lights, but then you go really quickly, water cisterns that we find, stops. It's so nice because it was very, very hot. And it was nice. It's almost like being in an air conditioning. And then we come out and we touch the Western Wall, the foundation of it, and we come outside. And this moment of coming outside, it's unbelievable because you stand up and ba-bam, the wall is right there. And I feel that this is something very, very special. And we're coming out, and I really want to ask you, Naomi, what do you show us in behind? Because we came out and I showed the wall, but we came out in a place that have, you know, just a wall. So I can see that you have something that it's behind you. And let's hear what it is.
So exactly, Benny, what we're seeing here is we came out, if you can see my arrow, can you see my arrow? Just over here, where do you see a doorway? Pretty close to that or under the arch, we came out and we were standing at what was the wall of the Temple Mount. This was the temple that was built 2,000 years ago by the great builder of ancient Jerusalem by the name of Herod the Great. The black arrow is what we saw earlier where Rabbi Goren was blowing the shofar, the Western Wall, just a small section of what was a 1,600-foot long wall of Herod's remarkable Temple Mount. And before we hear even a bit about the Temple Mount, folks, the wall where the arrow is was part of that shopping street. It was not holy 2,000 years ago like it is today. It was a street where we shopped, that Orchard Lake Road. But what has made it holy is that the temple no longer exists. And the only piece of this entire complex that stayed continually exposed for the last 2,000 years is that piece of wall where the arrow is today. But this is, I mean, look at it, it's a rectangular building. How was it done?
Oh, ha, 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 ha. I see that you are trying to steal my blueprints. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, hello. Who are all these people? Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Herod. Herod, also known as Herod the Great, ha, 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 or the builder. You know, in history, there is not many kings like me that left such an imprint that until today you can visit 22 buildings that I built. And I see that you came with Naomi. Oh, she's a welcomed guest in my palace. But today I'm not going to talk about that. It's good to see you. Welcome. But you also ask later on, Naomi, because you don't mess with the Herod. I cut heads and kill and wives, kids, anyone. So don't mess with me. Smart builder, but not really not patient. So I built a temple. I built Caesarea, named it after Caesar. But then I wanted to do something for the Jews because my family was converted to Judaism. And because my family was converted to Judaism, we weren't exactly, you know, they didn't want us to be kings. So I built this beautiful temple. And how did I build it? I actually thought, what can I do? What shall I do in this like idea? So remember right here, there was actually a mountain. But if you try to build a big building on a small mountain, it's impossible. So I actually built those 4 walls. You can see the walls. They are surrounding a little mountain that the top of it is right here. And the size of this mountain is from here to here. So that's the size of the mountain. I built a platform that is today, I heard the language of the new comings. It's
Well, it looks like Benny froze for a moment, or rather King Herod has disappeared for a moment. So let me just mention here about what is done today. These might be familiar faces from Detroit. This is the the president of the Jewish Federation, Matt Lester, with his son Asa, who did a bar mitzvah at the Western Wall just last year. So basically, holding a Torah or the Torah, the Bible, with the text for the bar mitzvah is the same text that 13-year-old boys read 2,000 years ago around the temple as well. And here is a bar mitzvah, modern clothes, different shoes, but the same ceremony is done 2,000 years later. Hopefully, post-COVID, we will all be able to return to the area of the Temple Mount of Jerusalem. But over to you, Benny.
Okay, wonderful. So I don't know why, but King Herod was visiting. Okay, so I don't know what happened to King Herod. He came and then he left, but what you can see that he was a great builder and really used to build this beautiful temple. And right now we are standing near the biggest stone that he built in while he was building the temple. The smallest stones, by the way, were in a size of 1.5 tons. But this one, look, those people are standing here. The stone continues and it's coming outside of the screen. And still, if we want to imagine the size of it, it's in the size of a yellow bus that you take to school, but add to it another 6 feet. The weight of it is 500 tons. And all of that we know from the temple of King Herod. Today, we're doing bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs in this area. This is such a beautiful area, but I also wanted to share with you a little bit that the different techniques that were used to build it. And it was used different machines that we can see today. The machines that we see today are based on pulleys. So you could really have a big stone that, and if we try to imagine a big stone, it's almost uncatchable. If we look on this person standing near the small stone, this is a small stone in the wall. So you start to understand that if they started to pull those, that's great, but how you take the big stones? And the big stones, if you see that the trick is to take the quarry, and near a quarry, when you take out the big stone, you build a wheel around it, and then roll it in order to build. Those models, all of them are in the Davidson Center. And I always say, you know, we're on this tour. You're coming, all of you are coming from the Detroit greater area. And I call Detroit, as me and Nomi, we call it a home away from home. I have so many friends there and so many family members, and I'm hosting so many people in my house from Detroit. But when I go to this site, that it's one of the most important sites in Israel, and I look, I found a wall, and this wall is a wall of donors, or like when I look on it, I feel that today, I would not usually show it, but today, because we are doing a tour from Detroit, it's a way to say, oh, it's a nachas. It's like you look on it and there is so many names. This one, and this one. They're all from the area of Detroit. And it's just a wall of nachas, I call, that you can be proud. And this is archaeological park that really, it's impossible to visit Jerusalem without visiting it. And of course, outside of this beautiful park is the Western Wall. And Nomi showed us a little bit the B'nai Mitzvah or Bar Mitzvah, where you can do it in the Davidson Center. It's the egalitarian section. It's where you can do something that it don't have to be by the Orthodox rules. This picture, look at it. I love it. It's interesting. It was taken last year. This is a picture from the Western Wall on a bar bat mitzvah day. It's Monday or Thursday. And this is the Orthodox section of the wall. You can see that there are umbrellas going up alongside with the separation. So the women and the mothers and the grandmothers, they all on one side. On the other side is the man with the bar mitzvah boy, and every couple of shaders is a different family. So it's like really, if you come early, you get the one that is close to the wall. If you come later, you are in a little bit more far. The Western Wall and the Kotel are very special and very spiritual. And we can see different events that are happening. Like in this picture, this is Friday night, Kabbalat Shabbat. And there is a one moment where every Friday is a little bit different. That's why even as a tour guide, that I've been there maybe 450 times on Friday night. You know, like every time. So this one is a circle suddenly, and sitting and singing songs. And you can see around, you have Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, modern Orthodox, Reform, secular, non-Jews, Japanese Christians, Evangelic Church from Texas, everybody together standing there, and it's a special spiritual moment. It's also a place that this plaza is also a place where soldiers in Israel, the IDF, you serve in the army for 3 years is if you are a boy, and for 2 years if you are a girl. And there is one special ceremony where you swear to protect the country, but you get 3 things. You can see that all of these soldiers, they all having the same color beret. So, but this is the beret before this ceremony. After that, they're gonna get their unit beret, and they're gonna get a weapon, and they're gonna get a Bible. And this is kind of a 3 ways connection. Remember the history in order to protect the future. Naomi, your son was sworn here, right? In a ceremony. So you know it from like you left your home in Jerusalem and went to the Western Wall Plaza. But also tourists come from all over. And here we can see the teenagers that are coming. This is a special parade on the Jerusalem Day that's celebrating the uniting of Jerusalem in 1967. And this is, you can see on the shirt, it's called March of the Living. It's teens that are going to Poland and then coming to Israel to celebrate life. And it's a super special moment. Naomi, what is the tradition to do when you go to the wall?Hat's the tradition? And
so what we do, and you can actually, we're going to be finishing off with this because behind Benny is a hand on the wall. And this is what I have done. Many of you sent notes to the wall, and we've put the notes in the Western Wall for you. And it is a tradition to make a blessing at the wall, and probably dates back to several hundred years when people wanted to make a wish facing Jerusalem. And by the way, when you are in services at temple or at synagogue, you are facing that wall. You are facing the temple. The closest built site to the temple is the Western Wall. And you are sending your prayers in that direction. And people who wanted to send the prayer and have it physically put in the wall often sent blessings or notes. Today, you can send it to us. We can send it digitally. You can come and put the note in the wall. In ancient times, it was often as someone sending them to the wall for you. So your messages have been put in the wall until you can get here and put them in yourselves, physically put them in yourselves. So Benny and I are going to sign off. We are thrilled that you joined us, and we hope that you will join us in the next 3 weeks when we visit the new city of Jerusalem, when we visit the Partnership region, when we also visit Tel Aviv. A big thank you to everybody at the Federation who has been so supportive in this first virtual mission, and of course to the Consul General in Chicago, the Israeli Consul General, and of course to you, Betty. Toda Rabah. We hope to see you all back here in Jerusalem very soon. Mwah. Shalom v'lehitraot.
So I want also to thank everybody that joined us. It's wonderful. And if you have questions, you're welcome to ask. Me and Naomi, we're going to hang around if you have any question. You know, it's an hour to give you a little taste, to build up the flavors. But what can I tell you? Next week, we're going to take you to the most colorful market. And for next week, you cannot come hungry, or at least make sure you have something near you to snack on, because what we are going to show you is the best 6 bites in the most famous market that one writer from Tel Aviv, from a small newspaper called A City Mice, and it's a Tel Aviv fashion kind of a newspaper that never give compliments to Jerusalem. He writes, there is good enough reason to fill up your car with enough gas. Yes, it's cost here in Israel about $8 per gallon. So there is a good enough reason to put enough gas to climb up the mountains of Jerusalem. And he didn't talk about the old city that we just visited. He actually talking about the market. So me and Naomi, we prepared for you the best 6 bites that when you're gonna come here, you're gonna try. But in the meantime, we'll tell you the stories behind them. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. We're wishing you a wonderful year, Shana Tova, and a good week.
Oh, if you have questions, folks, unmute yourselves and ask us a question. Feel free.
Thanks for the question. Are you ready to go?
Don't do that to me.
Oh, no.
Naomi, it's Jamie.
Jamie, hi.
Hi. A question for you. When we were there in February and we did the underground tour.
Correct.
Where was this all going on? Part of the construction that we saw? Was this, obviously it wasn't open yet, but was this part of the other underground tour that we did?
It was a continuation. I think we went into the Western Wall tunnels that has already been opened.
Yes.
This ultimately will connect to the tunnels. It's sort of the same construction. Unfortunately, it's, as we said, it's still not open to the public.
Okay, thanks. This was great. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, we want to see you here in person. We want to hug you all here.
Yes. Can't wait.
Any other questions, folks? And the answer was, how many times was Jerusalem conquered? Between 39 and 44 times. So someone wrote 44. They used my name, but it wasn't me. But it's between 39 and 44 times that Jerusalem was conquered.
Yeah, they Googled it probably.
That's very good. We like Google.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
On virtual tours, it's not count as cheating because you have an access.
Okay.
How do you think
good
kids get through
then,
college exams now on Zoom?
Right, but you can't Google the answer. Naomi,
Yes, hi, Bessie.
we miss you.
Well, we miss you all. We want to see you back in Israel. COVID, enough already. Hopefully it'll be over soon and we'll see you in person in Israel.
Yes, first day possible. We're coming.
Till next week, folks, in Machane Yehuda Market.
Toda rabah.
Lehitrot. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Benny. Bye.
Shalom.
Shalom.